Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Doing this on my channel. Is that okay? Or back to my channel. I don't remember what I said. Anyways, so this video, been meaning to film it for like a week or two. I've not been feeling good. I'm still not feeling super great. Hence the reason, very casual. If you'll see, my ponytail is quite something here. I want to go ahead and film this because I've had some people ask, like, where's the video? Like, are you going to actually film it? Yeah, we are. So you're actually sitting on a chair because the tripod is in our room and Timberly's asleep and I don't want to wake her up. So strange angle is what we get. But anyways, so by the title of this video, you can see we're talking about like sex and all other sorts of stuff that are like voodoo topics or whatever, which they really shouldn't be. I feel like especially in like Christian culture or whatever, sex is definitely not talked about, or if it is, it's always talked about negatively, which sex is not like a bad thing. But a lot of people have questions and they don't feel comfortable asking their parents or things like that. So we are your parents today. And we're just going to answer these to the best of our ability, and our answers are not the poster answer for Christianity. It's just what we feel in our heart and what we feel like God has communicated to us as well as he could. So our answers are not like 100% correct, but we're just trying to answer them the best we can from a Christian standpoint, if that makes sense. And some of them aren't like right or wrong answers, it's just like personal answers. Like this first question I'll start with, and I'll put them up here too, was sex uncomfortable while pregnant? Obviously there's no right or wrong answer for this. For me, it was in different ways in different trimesters, if that makes sense. First trimester, I just felt terrible. So it wasn't necessarily uncomfortable because of the baby, but because I was uncomfortable all the time. And I did a lot of I had a lot of cramping the first trimester, so I think that was really uncomfortable. I'm sorry, the air conditioning just came on. You might hear that. The second trimester, not so much. The second trimester was pretty much pure bliss in the first place. I felt fine. And obviously the third trimester, it was getting uncomfortable, and not to mention, so like one way they say to induce labor naturally is to have sex and stuff like that. So we were doing all of the things to try to get her out, like drinking the teas, walking, having sex, everything like that. And when you are 38 weeks pregnant, it is not fun or pleasurable. I was like a whale. It was so uncomfortable, but I was doing anything I could to get her out. I think it's just different for everybody. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily something Michael could have answered because he was not pregnant, but...
No, but I did have to be there.
Yeah. But it just really depends also where you are at in your pregnancy, I think. That depends too. I'll answer these two as well because they're birth control questions. This next one was, were you ever on birth control? If so, which one? And did it make you gain weight? So yes, I've actually been on birth control since I was about 15, not because I was having sex or anything like that, but I have something called von Willebrand, where basically my blood doesn't clot like it's supposed to, and so my periods were really, really bad. They were really heavy and lasted a long time because my body just never told my brain never told my body to stop bleeding. And at first I thought it was pretty normal because like when you get a period, you don't know any different. It's just the period you have. And I remember I just always was like, dang, no wonder people complain about this. But I remember I was sitting at lunch at school and the girls were talking about their periods being 4 or 5 days. And so the girls were like, well, mine are 7 days. And they were like, yeah, it's so bad. I have to like change my pad every so often, blah, blah, blah. And I just remember sitting there like, that's what? Because my periods were lasting 8 to 14 days. 8 was very rare. They're like 14 days long, super heavy. I would have to wear 2 nighttime maxi pads at once and a tampon, and I'd bleed through every 30 minutes. So I was obviously severely anemic all the time. Sometimes I'd go to the hospital because I lost so much blood. So for me and my doctors, it was the best choice to put me on birth control at a young age, even though I obviously was not having sex or anything like that. And birth control, has different effects on different people, and I have mixed feelings about it. It's a super great way to obviously avoid unwanted pregnancy. It's great to help people who need to regulate their hormones, or people like me who have really bad periods and need to like regulate those and lessen them or even stop them. And for a long time I actually didn't have a period because if I like did the placebo week, it would still be really, really bad. So I got to where I was skipping periods and stuff like that. But then again, you're gonna knock the phone over. But then again, like, there's negatives to it. It can make you gain weight. It can mess with your hormones. And sometimes it can like help you regulate your hormones so that you can be fertile later on. And in other people, it can mess up your fertility. Like, birth control is not one size fits all. But to answer that question, yes, I was on the pill. Every few years I'd switch a pill because every so often it wears off. So I was just on different pills from 15 up till I got pregnant last year. And then after I had her, went back on the pill, it wasn't working. So it's pretty typical your first 3 months of starting a new pill to have spotting. But I had gotten to the point where I was 6 months postpartum and had just never stopped bleeding. And so then I just stopped the birth control, and then I stopped bleeding all the time. But then once my periods rolled back around, I was having 2-week-long periods, which is obviously really bad, and now I'm become anemic again. So I'm actually starting a new birth control now, the NuvaRing. I haven't started it yet. I'm starting it a week from tomorrow. So if anybody wants a birth control update video on that, I can do that. But I have no solid answer for you on if the NuvaRing works and how it works. Michael's actually had a vasectomy, so my birth control now is not even for birth control. It's solely for my periods. My doctor was still worried about how anemic I had become. So, but for the weight gain, sorry, that was really long. The weight gain aspect, maybe a few pounds. But then again, I have thyroid issues, and then I also struggled with an eating disorder, and then I had other health issues that always affected my weight. So I couldn't say personally one way or another what was affecting my weight. Typically, I know some people say they gain like 15 or 20 pounds. My doctor said it's usually just like a 5-pound weight gain that you might do. It's water weight, but some people don't gain any, some people gain a lot. Like I said, it's not one size fit all. Somebody else said they're on the depot shot and gaining weight, but run every day to try and to avoid it. So the depot shot, that is one thing my doctor has never recommended to me. He's very obviously open about birth control. He's an OBGYN and things like that, but that he said it's basically like his last resort, and he'll do it if people ask for it, but he's not a fan of the depot shot at all. Okay, so it cut me off, sorry. But what I was saying was that with the depot shot, so you get it, I think it's every 3 months, and so it's a really, really big dosage all at once, which is I think why it causes the weight gain. And friends I know who have tried the depot shot, they've had really negative experiences. And like, I'm not saying, oh, I'm against the depot shot. I just know that my doctor doesn't really prefer that, and most of the people I know have had negative experiences with it. But I'm sure there are those people that it works great, and that's the only thing that works well for them. I think that's why there's so many different birth controls. But if you're not opposed to other options, obviously the pill is the first thing people choose because it's the easiest. But some people say they can't remember to take a pill every day, which I don't fully understand, because I don't know. It's not that hard to take. I mean, you're an adult or close to an adult if you're at the age of taking birth control. I don't think it's that hard to take a pill every day. Anyways, but there's other options, like the NuvaRing has less side effects because it doesn't go through your GI system, but you do have to like shove it up there, which before baby that would have really intimidated me, but once you push a baby out of that hole, it's not so scary anymore. So there's different things obviously, but if you are like constantly like gaining weight and you're still like living a healthy lifestyle and everything, I think maybe talk to your doctor and see about switching if there's something else you want to try. But also to wrap up someone else said, let me answer one more birth control question. Should have done 2 videos. Is it true the pill can cause it to be harder to have a child in the future? Always been nervous. So I kind of said this earlier. It's totally different. For some people, if they have hormonal imbalance, the pill is actually used for a while, not to necessarily prevent pregnancy, but to prepare your uterus for pregnancy, because it like regulates your hormones and everything like that. And even my naturopathic doctor had me on the birth control for a while. Well, I was always on it, but he said he normally didn't like birth control, but for me, because I struggled with hormonal imbalance, it was actually really good, which is probably why I got pregnant so easily on accident, because with the hormonal imbalance, the birth control had regulated my hormones. But with that being said, if you don't have to be on birth control, I don't think that you should be on it just to be on it, because it can be really harmful to your body. It's just like every other medicine. There's pros and cons that you have to outweigh for your personal decision. Like, I'm not going to advocate be on birth control. Like, if you don't need it for necessarily like a medical reason, then I wouldn't be on it. But also, it is a great way to prevent unwanted pregnancy. And if you're married and you're in that stage of life where obviously you're having sex with your spouse and stuff like that, but you guys aren't ready for a baby yet, and you feel like birth control is the right option for you, that's totally great too. You could also do natural family planning. There's condoms, the pull-out method, everything. Like, nothing is 100% effective, not even birth control. Obviously, I got pregnant on birth control. So, but you just have to outweigh the pros and cons for you personally. And now that Michael's been sitting here for about 15 minutes talking about birth control.
I know, I'm just sitting there.
Okay, my phone storage is so full. I think I deleted every app on here. We really need to get a camera. Anyways, let's talk about sex. Here's a good one. Does it hurt? I think that's meaning like the first time.
No, I mean,
I think for boys, like, it doesn't hurt.
No.
For me, it did the first time. It's uncomfortable, and I bled. And so, like, if you're gonna have sex for the first time,
make sure you have a towel.
Whether it's with your husband or if you feel like you're gonna do it outside of marriage, whatever, that's up to you. But just be prepared and make sure you're comfortable with that person, because it is not gonna be pretty. It's not. It is going to be maybe a little awkward. Not like awkward as in like, I hate this, just awkward because it's something you've never done before. Uncomfortable, especially if you're a girl. There may be blood, and that's okay.
But I mean, for some people it doesn't.
And sometimes it doesn't hurt, but sometimes it does, and that's normal.
Yeah. It didn't hurt for me. Some guys, I've heard that it does, just because it's that awkward.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this person said, I'm under a purity promise, and for some reason I'm afraid of being too inexperienced for my partner. So basically she has a promise ring and is vowing to not have sex before she's married, if you guys don't know what that means. Well, if you and your partner are both vowing to not have sex till you're married, then you're both going to be unexperienced, and that's okay. We weren't experienced. We just happened with each other, and even though you don't know what you're doing, but at the same time your body just knows what to do, if that makes sense. Like,
you just go with the flow, pretty much. It's
very natural. It's something we were made to do. Like, God designed it. It's a gift from God. That's literally what sex is. So I wouldn't be afraid about being inexperienced or something, especially if you and your partner have decided to take that vow of purity together. Like, you're going to be in the same boat. And even if you are somebody who hasn't had sex and your partner has, and you're waiting till marriage and they respected that, and you decided that's the right thing for you guys, like, it's okay if that's your person and, like, you're going to marry them and they're the love of your life. It's okay if you haven't done what they've done. Like, they're going to love you and respect you enough to go at your pace and not make you feel uncomfortable or make you feel silly for not having done anything before, if that makes sense.
And, like, before you do anything, make sure you have that conversation of, like, what you feel is safe in the bedroom, what you feel is unsafe, what you're comfortable with, what they're comfortable with. And just, like, make sure y'all are on the same page so one of y'all doesn't...
I'm gonna kill my phone. Anyways.
But what I was saying, even, like, have the conversation before, talk it through, or even after, like, say, hey, how did you feel about this? What could I have done? Like, it's okay to ask questions. Like, we both ask questions all the time.
And it's okay to stop. If you want to stop, like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Or if you need to take a break. Like, it's very emotional, and that's supposed to be, and that's okay too. there's no right or wrong way to do it, if that makes sense, I guess.
Like, how many times you cried
while you were pregnant? I was pregnant, I cried every time. So, was it uncomfortable? No, I just cried because my hormones were all over the place, and it's a very intimate, emotional thing anyways.
Yeah, and I thought I was doing something wrong, and I was like,
I'm okay, I'm just emotional. How can you talk about anatomy with a child, or how old should they be when you do that? So,
well, I mean, obviously there's different, sorry, stretching, but there's different, like, things that you would talk about between, like, a boy and a girl, and, like, maybe not necessarily a different age, but, like, just when they, I think when they kind of start to hit puberty, or, like, a little before.
Yeah, it's different for every kid. My mom never, like, had the talk with me. I mean, I pretty much just figured things out. But I always knew that if I had a question about anything, that I could ask my mom. I remember the first time I asked how babies were made. I was in the car, and my sister started laughing. And I was like, actually, I don't think I want to know yet. And she was like, okay. And later on, I just kind of figured out, obviously, movies, TV, and stuff like that. You kind of figure things out, but I think having an open line of communication with your child to where they always know they can ask you those questions is going to prevent the whole awkwardness, them sneaking around, not knowing what's right or what's wrong, kind of thing like that, and also prevent, I don't know what I'm trying to say, just like being very open with them, but it's every age is different. But then with the whole anatomy thing too, that starts at a really young age, teaching them.
Like, when we're holding Timberly, she'll, like, touch our face, and we're like, nose. And like, it's just the same thing.
It's the same thing, like, she has a vagina. Like, that's a thing. And a lot of times, parents teach kids improper terms or nicknames. And then I've seen, like, a lot of times that's actually really hurtful, because in school, they'll be telling their teacher about what a family member or something does to their cookie or things like that, and the teacher has no idea what that means because it's a nickname. And so I think for their safety as well, it's very important at a young age to teach them the proper terms for anatomy, whether it's their nose or vagina or elbow or things like that, because number one, they just need to know the correct terms, and in the long run it can actually be really helpful and end up saving them from a harmful situation.
Like, they were 4 and 5.
Okay, what does sex mean to you?
Well, it's a God-given gift, and it's, like you said earlier, it's what we're created to do. But I mean, at the same time, it's, like I said, it's a gift, but it's also, like, a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, it means, like, showing my husband that I love him in the most intimate way possible, and the most special way that God has given us.
Yeah.
Another question was views on sex before marriage. And so, obviously, this is the question everybody came here for, because we're Christians, and sex before marriage, and everyone wants to know the opinions. So I think we have a unique view, because we waited for each other, but not for marriage. But then when we realized that even though we knew we were getting married, we still needed to wait till we were married, that we re-waited. And there's power in re-waiting. Like, if you've had sex, whether it's with the person you're engaged to be married to, or a bunch of other people that were just one-night stands, like, it doesn't matter, you can re-wait. But we have this unique view where we had sex before marriage, but it was with the person we ended up marrying. And I can tell you those experiences are completely different. Mm-hmm. Because sex in marriage is a bajillion times better than sex before you're married, even if it's with the same person. And that's what God's design was sex was supposed to. Okay, so we're finishing this out on Michael's phone, because my phone storage is completely full, so the quality's kind of bad. But anyways, the views on sex before marriage, like I was saying, it's different. Like, so God designed sex for a husband and wife in marriage. That's the male, sorry. And even though it's somebody you're gonna marry, it's different. Spider. Oh, heck, no, get it. Don't let it run away. Anyways, I've lost my train of thought.
Husband and wife.
Yes. So for a husband and wife in marriage. And so, like, sex is... Hold on. So you're probably like, Amy, well, what's the difference if you love them and you know you're going to marry them? That was kind of our train of thought too. And I don't have a full answer, except when you do things the way God designed them, they just work. And there's some things that we don't have answers to, but I know that God designed sex for marriage. And even though it's with the same person, it's different, because when you have sex, when you're married with the person that you love and you keep Jesus at the center of your relationship, and you're having sex and expressing love to your husband or wife in the deepest way that you could possibly do it through Jesus's love, there's just something so beautiful about that. And you can try all you want before you're married. I'm not telling you to do it, but I'm saying, like, you can try and you're like, oh yeah, this is as good as it gets, but it's not. Because when you're married, you've made that decision. It's the two become one. Before you're married, you're two separate people. But when you are married, it's the two becoming one. So when you've made that commitment to become one, and it's you and God, like, that's what it is. It's me, Michael, and Jesus. Like, that's what it is. And when you are having sex in marriage, it's just so different. Like, I don't have a direct answer for you, and I could probably articulate it better writing, because right now my brain's just kind of all over the place.
It's kind of like, so like if you are a Christian and like you have sex before marriage with that person that you think you're gonna marry, like, you have Jesus and this other person has Jesus, but y'all don't have Jesus together.
And there's always a guilt that follows after.
Yeah.
If you have sex before you're married, even if you love that person afterwards, there's this guilt. But the difference between that, like, you always have this guilt after. It's like, oh, I know I should not have done that. But then when you're married, there's just this feeling of, wow, I really love this person. Like, there's never that guilt after, and that's something so special, and it just changes how everything feels. And so obviously, if you have sex before marriage, no, you're not condemned to hell. You're not a huge, like, we're all sinners. Like, that's what it is. We sin daily. And I don't have an answer for that. We just sin. There's temptation. But
when you're married, have all the sex you want.
Yeah.
It's great.
But there's something really special in waiting.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't waited, like, it's not too late to start over. There's power in re-waiting, whether it's with the person you are going to marry or somebody totally different. And, like, obviously we're not condemning anybody who's done it, because we did it. And it's really hard not to, because when you're super attracted to a person and you love them, you want to express that to them. But it's something that...
And you're a hormonal...
Your hormones are raging, and you're just young and horny, and, like, that's how it is. But there's something really special in waiting till you're married, and you'd be glad that you did it.
Yeah.
And once you're married, you'll understand it. And for now, you might be like, oh, you guys are just prudes, blah, blah, blah. Just when you're married, you'll know. My bracelet just popped off. Another one. Oh, hold on. Is masturbation okay? Is it wrong? Is it natural? So this question, sorry, I know you're kind of just sitting here. But I've been
it all in.
thinking about this one. And this is a tough cookie to answer. But let me answer this how I'm kind of thinking, and then you can answer it.
Okay.
Kind of like bounce off of it. Masturbation. If you don't know what it is, you are too young to watch this video. And you should not have been here for most of this conversation.
Go ahead and click that exit button.
But, so, like I said, marriage was designed for a husband and wife. Masturbation is basically sex with yourself. So not really husband and wife kind of thing. But also the big thing with masturbation is there's always some sort of lust involved. I feel like you're always thinking of somebody else, and a lot of time it leads to porn, because you're either thinking about somebody, like lusting after somebody that you're not married to, or you're looking at somebody that you're not married to, if that makes sense. I'll never really know if masturbation itself is okay or not, but I think the whole thing, like, masturbation itself is not necessarily one conversation. There's always going to be lust. There's usually porn involved or things like that, and that's not what God designed as sex. And I think that's why there's a really big problem with porn addiction and things like that, because people are like, well, it's okay to masturbate because I'm not having sex with other people. What you're doing is hurting your mind in the long run, because you're watching porn, or you have this image in your head of what it's going to be like, and it's disgusting, and it's not love. Like, what you're watching on porn, that is not love, and that's not what Jesus designed sex to be. And so then I feel like a lot of times, and I know I've heard a lot of people say that it really does mess with your brain and causes you to not really be able to fully show your affection towards other people, because porn can be really harmful. It affects relationships. Like, you can tell me porn's okay all you want, but it's not. Porn, that's one thing I'll tell you, porn is wrong. And I know people struggle with it, and struggling, like being tempted, is okay. You are going to be tempted whether with it's a chocolate bar, cute guy on TV,
Jesus
porn,
was tempted.
spending money, whatever. Like Michael said, Jesus was tempted, but it's when you follow through with that temptation that it becomes a sin. And if
one of the verses that we just read in our little marriage thing, like we're actually reading a devotional about sex and temptation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like 1 Corinthians something, but it said that Jesus always there's always a way that Jesus will give you, like, to get out of whatever you're tempted with.
Yeah. Like, you're going to be tempted, but it's which path you choose then. And the thing is, if you choose to follow through with that temptation, all it takes is to ask for forgiveness, ask for redemption, and move on from that. That's all it takes. So you talk about masturbation, actually.
Oh, you keep
my
going.
Bible app's gone. I can't. I had to delete everything on my phone.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just one of those things that, like, how you have that conversation with sex, you have to have that conversation with, like, what you're comfortable with masturbating, and, like, what's wrong, what's not wrong, like, how comfortable y'all are. Like, do y'all do it together? Do you do it by yourself? Like, what's that fine line of
it's like
how much and how little?
Obviously, all within the realms of marriage, not in dating, because if I don't care if you're masturbating and thinking about your girlfriend, that's still lust because you're not married. But it's like one of those things in marriage, like people in the military, like, I don't know, like, is that, if they're thinking of each other, like, is that okay when their husband's deployed? Or are they supposed to just sit there and be horny for 8 months? Like, I don't know. I don't have the answers for that. And I think that that's one of those things you talk about in your marriage, because I don't have answers for that. Like, so you're like, well, maybe it would be okay, or maybe it's not, and I don't know. But I do know, like, with the masturbation outside of the realms of marriage, for sure, I would say no, only because it's outside of what God created for sex, because you are either lusting after somebody who's not your husband or wife, or you're watching porn or things like that, if that makes sense.
And, like, I have always struggled with porn, but, like, once I got to know Amy, and, like, even before we were married, she knew that I struggled with it, and, like, I struggled with it a little while we were married.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but, like, after every time, like, I would masturbate and then I would watch that, I always felt guilty, even before I knew you.
Mm-hmm.
There was just something that was always there, and I knew it was wrong, but I kept doing it. But then, once this beautiful, wonderful person came into my life, she, like, taught me things and just kind of, like, opened that page, like, where it was wrong and, like, why it was wrong. So I think, like, the biggest thing that you need to have, like, even if you're not married, is just an open line of communication and, like, trustfulness. And for instance, if I did watch it or something, just knowing that, or you watched it, like, we've both watched it before, we've watched it together, and then we know that it's wrong. But just, like I said, that open line of connection, and just saying, hey, are you struggling? If you are struggling, let's talk. I'm not here to judge you. I'm your husband. I'm your wife.
Like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Like, to know that if you do mess up, or even if you're struggling with temptation, like, if you haven't done anything like Michael's come to me before and he's like, I really wanted to watch porn, but I haven't, but I just want to let you know that I'm struggling with it. And that's when I go, okay, how can I help you with that? Because it's normal. When you become married, your temptations aren't going to go away. You're still going to struggle with things. But like Michael said, it's having that open line of communication to be able to go to your spouse and be like, I'm struggling with this and I need you. And then you, in response, will go, okay, how can I help you? Like, how can I pray for you? How can I help you resist that temptation? And how can I help you in that?
It doesn't have to be porn. Like you said, a chocolate bar.
Yeah.
Like,
or like, hey, like for me, one of my big temptations is buying things that I definitely don't need. And every temptation has a root. For me, the root of that is I was really sick in high school, and my family unknowingly created a shopping addiction, because that's the only way they knew how to make me feel better, is they would buy me things because I couldn't go do things. You don't feel good? Let's get some new makeup. You don't feel good? Let's get a new comforter for your bed. So for me, especially like this week, it's been really hard not to buy things I don't need because I've been having a flare up with my health. And so my brain goes to, Michael's taking a nap and I almost bought a $500 camera. I know that we do have talked about getting it, but that's not something I need to buy. And so instead of buying it, when Michael woke up, I was like, hey, I'm struggling. I want to buy this camera and I know we don't need to. So let's talk about that. Like, it's as simple as that, if that makes sense. Another thing, which is a great...
What was that?
What? I said.
Oh.
So somebody said, what are your thoughts on purity culture that is typically pushed in church? And she sent me a longer message kind of going over that. But basically what she's saying is, like, in church growing up, you hear, don't have sex before you're married. It's bad. But you are never told why. Well, and if you are, you hear this scenario of, you have 12 chocolates in a box, and if you have sex with one person, you get rid of a chocolate. This is what girls are told. And if you have sex again, there's another piece of chocolate. And then by the time you're married, what if you don't have any chocolate to give to your husband? Or what if you give your husband an unwrapped gift? Like, I hate that, and that's what drives people to have sex. Because they're told that they're chocolates. Like, you are worth way more than a box of chocolate.
There ain't no cookie.
And I think it starts right there. And I don't have an answer necessarily for the boys. And Michael grew up in church, but not so much in the teenage years. So I don't know if you ever really heard much about that because you weren't really in church at that time. But for me, I know it always sometimes it made me angry, and I was just like, well, I'm going to go have sex and give my chocolate away just so make you mad. Like, obviously I did not do that. But it just makes you feel really bad. And I think, kind of like how we talked about earlier, explaining why and explaining that sex is not bad. Like, sex is good. It was created for a reason, like we said earlier. But to start with that and stop comparing girls to discounted chocolate at Valentine's Day, because that's, I think, not the root of the issue, but it's one of the really big issues. And to basically what we said earlier, like, talk about what sex is. Sex is not bad, and explain how great it can be in the right circumstances, if that makes sense. And quit condemning people if they mess up. If you have sex before you're married, and if you get a speeding ticket, guess what? That's the same in Jesus's eyes. So stop blowing up one out of proportion compared to the other. Our jobs are to love people and not judge. So if you would disagree with everything we say in this video, that's okay. Even if you're a Christian, that's okay, because we don't have to agree. This is what we feel like in our hearts that Jesus has communicated to us, and we don't have solid answers. Some answers we were like, yep, that's as good as we got, and that's what we're going to go with right now, and our answers could change next week based off of what Jesus communicates to us, if that makes sense. But this is probably like 40 minutes long, to be honest, and I don't know how I'm going to edit it because that requires downloading things back onto my phone, but we're going to get it. If you guys also would want to see a video solely about birth control, or a video about how we had sex before marriage and then started rewaiting again.
I think they already got the one about the birth control.
Yeah, this whole half was birth control. But if you wanted a video solely on that, or another one about, like, rewaiting and what happens if you do have sex before you're married, even if it's with the person you're going to marry. Because we did not have sex with anybody else except for each other. We never have, but we did slip up a few times before we were married. So, if you want to see a video about that too, we totally could.
Or any, like, my point of view of, like, a guy's mindset of sex or.
Yeah, and I don't want you guys to
Anything?
think that I totally like took over the video. Obviously, most of the questions were like
I
a
don't
lot
know
of the
nothing about birth
questions were
control.
birth control and stuff like that. And I know we have different views about, not different views, but different perspectives from a female and male. And so if you did want to see a video like solely from a male's point of view, we could totally do that too. With him, not me. But thank you guys for watching this, and thank you for the questions. I think I missed a few of them, but because I wasn't able to save all of them. So, but thank you guys for watching this and bearing with the technical difficulties and my rambling and everything like that. But y'all, my ADHD has been so bad lately. My doctor the other day asked how my focus was, and I was like, it's fine. I mean, I forget, and then I totally did not finish the rest of my sentence. And he was like, you forget what? I was like, oh, what I'm saying in the middle of a sentence. And he goes, yeah, I could tell. But thank you guys for watching this. Hopefully it's not too choppy. And see you next in another video.
Next video.
Hopefully going to do a Shein haul if it comes in soon. Totally different than this. But thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video, and maybe we'll vlog again someday on our channel. But I do post monthly videos of Timberly on there if you want to see. So, thanks for sitting here and listening to birth control.
You're welcome, bud.
Bye. I might go take a nap.